Hi everyone, welcome to Interesting Investments. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia because it's been on quite the ride. And by ride I mean straight up, like straight to the moon, interstellar, intergalactic, enough space jokes. You get the point. And in this video I want to discuss whether it will actually be able to maintain this. Is Nvidia's valuation ludicrous or justified? So let's figure out what has Nvidia going out of this world. Okay, I promise that's the last space joke. So for a bit of a summary, we all know Nvidia is a GPU maker, primarily. They make GPUs for both gaming consoles, PCs, laptops, and servers. And while I may use make and design interchangeably throughout this video, Nvidia doesn't actually produce any of its own chips. All of it is outsourced to third parties, primarily TSMC. And while that's not overly important in the grand scheme of things, it does have a little bit to do with pricing power and profit sharing, essentially. So Nvidia designs the chip, makes the architecture, and adds software on top. Then TSMC takes the design and actually produces it. Recently it has been on a 5nm design and is now going on to a 3nm design. After that, they're primarily sold to either crypto miners, large cloud companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, or to PC makers. That's an oversimplification of how Nvidia fits into the industry overall. Now let's take a look at those pretty graphs that make us money. As you can see, Nvidia has been on quite the journey over the last 5 years. A 630% return over 5 years is absolutely outstanding. Those kind of returns basically crush everything even within the tech industry. So to put that into more digestible terms, if you purchased $1,000 worth of Nvidia stock 5 years ago, you would now have $7,300. And $100,000 would have been over $700,000. Let's just say compared to the S&P 500, Nvidia has been absolutely crushing it. But the main concern is that last little spike at the end of the 5-year period. The main outlier over the last 2 years has been the volatility. First running up to a high in 2022, which in itself is not surprising, basically every stock did. Then crashing over 60%, and then tripling within 2 years. That kind of volatility even makes Bitcoin blush. If we zoom in a bit, you can see that over the course of just the last 12 months, it has been up 200% or nearly 3 times. And since the beginning of 2023, Nvidia has tripled in valuation. So what on earth is going on with Nvidia? Like, I've seen some crazy rise and falls, especially in the crypto market. But for a large cap US company, this is quite the roller coaster. And I'd have to say that there's really nothing in Nvidia's books that has changed to justify this. Not revenue, not profit, nothing has tripled like its price. As you can see here, it's not because it had a low price to earnings ratio. Actually, it's the opposite. Currently, it's running at an actual of 140 times earnings, and even its PE forecast is 57 times earnings. But what does all this mean? How does Nvidia compare to basically any other company that's operating in the S&P 500? No need to worry, dear viewer, I have set up a comparison for you. In comparison number 1, we are putting Nvidia against its fellow silicon chip manufacturers, and designers, and fabricators, however you want to categorize them. So we got Intel, AMD, and TSMC up against Nvidia. Obviously none of them are close to Nvidia's $1.1 trillion valuation, with TSMC taking the silver medal at about a $500 billion valuation, or about half of Nvidia's. Just under to be precise. Intel and AMD are valued at about 1/6 of Nvidia. And if you slide on down to the revenue category, Nvidia's $26.9 billion in the last fiscal year is quite impressive. While it does beat out AMD, it is far behind Intel and TSMC. But revenue alone doesn't make a company money, its profit does. So that's when we get into the more interesting case. There is no doubt that Nvidia crushes both Intel and AMD in profit, making about 4 times more per dollar than AMD, and making about 6 times the profit per dollar than Intel. But TSMC, on the other hand, actually beats Nvidia on both revenue and profit, despite having half the valuation. So what is going on here? Why is Nvidia valued so much? Why is TSMC not valued similarly? Will Intel and AMD ever get their act together? Probably not, at least anytime soon. One of the reasons why TSMC is not valued similarly is because everybody's uncertain on how long it can maintain such a profit margin. Currently, TSMC has the best manufacturing technology and capacity, which gives it pricing power. But not only is that manufacturing capacity expensive, industry experts overall are unsure how long TSMC can remain in the lead, at least enough to profit that much. But let's not get sidetracked, we're talking about Nvidia here. So let's get into comparison number 2. This time we have Nvidia going up against its fellow tech peers that it's often compared to. And to be honest, I thought this would actually make Nvidia look more normal, but it really doesn't, and that took me by surprise. So Nvidia's valuation is number 2 on this list, about 1/3 of Apple's $3 trillion, but more than Meta's $800 billion valuation and Adobe's $230 billion valuation. Now with revenue, the overall amount of money they bring in, Nvidia is in 3rd place on this list, and pretty far away from even Meta's $116 billion in revenue per year. And Apple's revenue per year is just rude, to be honest. But as we know, revenue without profit margin doesn't really mean a lot. And while Nvidia's profit margins are more in line with the tech companies it's often compared to, it is actually in 4th place on this list. So despite being valued nearly 50% more than Meta, only having about 25% of the revenue of Meta, and having 8% less profit per dollar made than Meta, Nvidia's valuation doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That or you'd think everybody hates Facebook or something. You could probably say that Meta's valuation would be higher if Mark Zuckerberg wasn't going on the Meta crusade. But the revenue to profit margins between the two companies don't make the comparison favorable for Nvidia. So does that mean Nvidia is doomed to come down? Well, probably, but who am I to know? I can't see the future any more than any of you. But at its current valuation, Nvidia is not something I'm interested in buying, that's for sure. Not until I see tangible evidence that Nvidia can triple its revenue and maintain its profit. But that takes us into the part of the video that I've been avoiding so far. What sent Nvidia soaring? And largely it has been basically AI. It is the talk of the town and on every shareholder meeting possible. Especially if you're Google. What was it, 100 times? So while big tech works on automating all of our jobs, Nvidia is the one powering them all. And because of that dominance, Nvidia will be going to the moon. Well, at least that's what the general belief was. And by no means do I doubt how much Nvidia is about to profit from the AI boom. AI, from what I understand, is extremely computationally heavy, far more than any algorithmic search. But that being said, I do think Nvidia's price has gotten a bit ahead of itself, and the AI industry overall. And while I have no doubt that AI will absolutely help automate tasks, anything from simplifying complicated software to the homework you were supposed to do, and maybe even from the script I'm reading from. Just kidding, I don't have a script actually. But yeah, Nvidia has gone to the moon because of AI. The problem is, I don't think the AI industry is keeping pace with Nvidia's price. So either Nvidia's price needs to stagnate for a while until the industry catches up, or I imagine Nvidia might be in for another plunge to realign itself with the AI industry we're currently in. But I want to know what you all think. I think Nvidia's price is getting out of hand. I definitely couldn't justify buying it. But could any of you? Do any of you hold it? Did any of you make that 200% return? If you did, let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like the content we make, please like, subscribe, and keep watching Interesting Investments.